Hello everyone, Chris Lashava with Home Team Epic and I Think Realty. And in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the question of whether you should wait for the housing market to crash to buy a home. And we get asked that a lot by buyers. We see a lot of misinformation out there about what's happening in the housing market right now. And so I want to talk a little bit about how things are different than they were in 2008 when the housing market last did have a crash. Now I want to be clear, the market's changing. It's been an extreme seller's market with less than 1 month's worth of inventory for a couple of years now. And sellers could pretty much name their price and have bidding wars and no contingencies. So it's been a dream scenario for sellers for a couple of years now. And the market is shifting. It is balancing out more. But a balanced market does not mean a crash. It feels like a crash because of the extreme seller's market we were in, and we're no longer in an extreme seller's market. We're starting to see price drops in homes that are listed. We're seeing homes sell for their less than list price. We're starting to see more negotiation. We're starting to see all the contingencies coming back, like inspections, appraisals, etc. So the market is definitely shifting, and I would say it's balancing, but that doesn't mean it's crashing. In 2008, one of the things that was happening was lenders were giving a loan to anyone who could breathe. There were really no loan requirements or minimum requirements, and so there were a lot of people who were purchasing homes that they frankly couldn't afford. And so as soon as the market started to have a correction, those people no longer could afford their mortgages, and the housing market was flooded with inventory. And the demand at the time wasn't as high as it is now. So that huge increase in inventory because of foreclosures and short sales combined with lower demand resulted in prices dropping dramatically in a very short amount of time. As we talk now, demand is actually still high. It has lessened because mortgage rates have gone up over 7%. Actually, they dropped back below 7% this week, barely, but think 7%. And I think there's a lot of sticker shock for buyers who were hearing about the 3% mortgage rates. And so when you compare a 3% mortgage rate to a 7% mortgage rate, that's really a tough pill to swallow. But historically speaking, a 7% mortgage rate is actually not all that bad. And while demand has definitely slowed because of it, it hasn't stopped. And part of what is fueling demand is the millennial home buyer has entered the housing market. And I think for a lot of different reasons, they understand the value of home ownership, and it's more important to them than maybe some other generations, and they're doing it a little earlier. And so it's a large population. The millennial generation is a pretty large demographic, and so that has caused demand to be really kind of sky high, which is part of what raised housing prices to begin with, is there was no way for supply to meet that really sky high demand. The other thing that's happening now is we're not seeing the huge increase of inventory. We've seen a little bit of an increase because demand has gone down a little bit, and there has been an influx, at least locally, of home builders with new homes available on the market, but we're still at less than 3 months of inventory. So we're actually still in a seller's market, even though it feels like the market has crashed. And so the inventory differences between 2008 and now are significant. And in fact, builders back in 2008, a bunch of them went out of business. Those that didn't go out of business slowed their home building significantly. And just overall in the country, home building hasn't reached those pre-2008 levels. And so builders are not building enough to offset demand. And so we're still seeing prices go up despite the decrease in demand due to mortgage rates. And so those are a couple things that are really making the market different. I think the other thing is that overall home became more important because of the pandemic. And it had been so long since we sort of had a global pandemic like that, and one that had such an impact on everybody, that now people, it's still fresh in their mind. And so in some ways, they're behaving as if the next pandemic is just around the corner, which it very well could be. And so people are thinking about what's important to them, what would have been important to them, or what situation would they like to have been in when the pandemic started, and how can they set themselves up now to be in that situation when the next pandemic does hit. It's not all rosy in the housing market, certainly. Those mortgage rates are making it hard for some people, especially first-time home buyers, to purchase probably as much home as they'd like to. And so that's definitely a challenge. Homes are sitting on the market longer because there aren't as many buyers out there, and that's making it a challenge for sellers. Sellers are having to adjust to the new market, and a lot of them haven't. They're still thinking they're in the market of 6 months to a year ago, and it's just a different market. Anyway, so those are some things that are a little different about '08 and now. And honestly, if you can afford the monthly payment, because rents have gone up so much as well, it is still a good time to buy a home. You may have to temper your expectations a little bit, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, and think about what are some trade-offs, what are some things you can sacrifice for now, so that in the future you might be able to have that in your dream home. But just to be able to stop the rental cycle and get out of renting and into purchasing, maybe you don't need that in-ground pool. Maybe you don't need 4 bedrooms and you can live with 3. Maybe you don't need granite countertops. But there might be some things that you can give up for now to get into a home, and then you could add always in the future, or you could upsize your home later on as your family gets bigger or whatever your life situation changes. So those are some things to think about as a buyer. I think the other thing is, because drastic change in interest rates, a lot of sellers or would-be sellers who might think about moving up or moving down aren't, because they're going to trade in a 3% mortgage rate for a 7% mortgage rate, and most people aren't willing to do that. So unless you're forced to move, which that happens too, a lot of people are going to stay put, which means the inventory is not going to increase. So prices are still going to remain relatively high. So I just don't think waiting for a crash is a smart move, because people who waited for the crash that the pandemic was supposed to cause have cost themselves probably $100,000 in equity, depending on the purchase price of the home. But people who bought in the last couple of years are looking at $60, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 in equity they earned because they bought before the pandemic, and how much price is appreciated. So that's just something to think about. When you wait, you actually can cost yourself money too. It's really hard to sort of time the market perfectly. You've got to make decisions based on what is right for you in that situation financially and for your family. Anyway, I hope this information is helpful. As always, if you just need to talk about the market and how it might impact you and what your situation is, we're happy to consult with you. We do not believe it's right for everybody to buy a home now, even though obviously it helps us. People want to buy, that helps us because that's how we make our living. We believe it's more important to give you honest advice, honest consultation as to what's right for your unique situation, and then try to help you do that. And if right now home ownership isn't in the cards for you, it doesn't make sense for you, we'll talk with you and we'll make sure we advise you, and then when you're ready, we'll be there to help you. So hope this information is helpful. As always, if we can be of assistance, please reach out to us. We'd love to help. Have a great day.